So I think the one thing that all Marvel fans can agree on right now is that the last couple of years have not been it for Marvel. Specifically, Phase 4, the movies were more missed than hit, and the TV shows were more missed than hit. That's my opinion, but I think that's one a lot of people share right now. A lot of people can agree that everything was really messy over the last couple of years. The setup that they were hoping to give us for the multiverse saga has not really been there. So going into Phase 5 2023, I was really excited with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania to see Kang and the kickoff of all of that. I thought that was going to be our real introduction. And it kind of came off as a big joke. It was almost like it was parodying what Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania should have been. So going into this, I think a lot of people were kind of split because Guardians, it's known for its goofiness, but it does goofiness really, really well. James Gunn does goofiness really well, should I say. So I think going into this, I was a little bit over the goofy factor of the MCU, but I knew what the Guardians were in for. I knew what I was in for going into this. And I'm pleased to say that this movie's awesome. This is my favorite Marvel movie since No Way Home, since Phase 3, probably. If I had to choose one, I'd say Guardians 3 is probably a better movie than No Way Home is by a good bit. But No Way Home has that awe factor to it, so it's kind of hard to get over that. But this is definitely a better movie, and it's my favorite Marvel movie since Phase 3. It has that Phase 3 magic. I don't want to say the MCU is back, and I may not seem as enthusiastic as I'm putting words into it, but I really did love this movie, and I do think it has that Marvel magic that we've been missing from Phase 4 and the beginning of Phase 5. But I don't want to say that Marvel is back because this is largely a James Gunn project, and that's what the first two Guardians were. While intertwined into the MCU, those are probably the two movies that remained most untouched by studio heads and executives such as Kevin Feige and all of the other people that have been working alongside him throughout the years. So when this movie came out good, I wasn't surprised at all, but I wasn't coming out of it being like, oh yeah, Marvel's back, we're back, Marvel's good again, because I still have my same worries going from this movie into the future. But for now, I want to talk about this movie because this movie is fantastic. This movie broke me multiple times. It is probably the most emotional Marvel movie that I have seen in theaters, including Wakanda Forever, which is emotional for its own different reasons. But everything with Rocket and his backstory in this movie is laid out perfectly, and everything leading up to his backstory in this movie, everything that we have learned about his backstory, hints and stuff from 1 and 2, and then other stuff in the Infinity Saga, really just leads into this perfectly, and it crushes you. It really crushes you. Everything with him and his friends trying to get away from the High Evolutionary, everything that he does to him is terrible. I mean, seeing little baby Rocket and seeing and hearing him just say hurts because that's all he can say is just heartbreaking. You could be the toughest person on the planet. I mean, you're going to tear up at that. But ultimately seeing Rocket break them out and then the High Evolutionary catching them, killing Lila, Teefs, and Floor, and then him ripping High Evolutionary's face off. I mean, I think that was perfect. I mean, Rocket is justified in every way to do that after seeing what he has done to him and his friends and other animals. And that leads me into the High Evolutionary because I think this is one of the best villains that Marvel has given us in a while, probably since Thanos. Hopefully the Kang setup can be there with the whole Jonathan Majors thing right now. I really don't know how all of that's going to end up, but I don't want to throw Kang in there. But I would say High Evolutionary is up there with Thanos in regards of MCU villains just because he has that hateability factor because of how cruel he is to the animals and Rocket in this. But he's also just a good villain. And Shakwudi Awuji, if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, you guys can correct me down in the comments. He did an amazing job portraying the High Evolutionary in a hateful and just very violent and despicable way. I know he's a classically trained actor, so I'm sure that helped him a lot, but he was the standout in this movie to me. As for the rest of the Guardians, everybody's fantastic. I mean, Chris Pratt is Star-Lord. I mean, Drax, Mantis, Gamora, Nebula, Groot is always fantastic. Everybody was in their element. The only Guardian, obviously, who's out of their element a little bit is Gamora, and that plays into the story with her dying in Infinity War and then coming back in Endgame and all of that charade. I think all of that is portrayed really well. I just would have liked to see more of the romance between Quill and Gamora just because I feel like that's one of the strongest romances that we had in the MCU, and then it was just kind of shattered with Infinity War and Endgame. And I think James Gunn didn't have that in mind whenever he was writing Volume 3, probably whenever he had Volume 2 written, because I think he had Volume 3 written before Infinity War and Endgame. So I wonder if that was all told to him by Kevin Feige and he could plan that out. But it all plays off very, very well with them, kind of going back and forth, Gamora not knowing who he is in the beginning, and then them becoming friends, and they're all at peace with each other at the end of the movie. And that's another thing, nobody dies, and I will get to that after this topic. But I did like the outcome with them just being friends, him going back to Earth to be with his family, his grandpa, and then her going to her own family, her new family, the new Gamora's family, should I say, the Ravagers. But I would have liked to see more of their romance, because like I said, that's probably one of the strongest romances that we have in the MCU. So not seeing that in this movie was a little disappointing, but I liked what they did with those characters. Adam Warlock being the new face in this movie, as well as Cosmo. Cosmo I really, really liked, but Adam Warlock wasn't really given that much to do in this movie, not as much as they kind of played him up in the marketing. I thought he was going to be like this deadly threat that the Guardians were going to have to face, but he comes off more as a joke, but it actually lands. It's a joke that lands. I will give it that. I liked what they did with him, kind of acting like a toddler, because he essentially is one. He was taken out of his capsule too early because the High Evolutionary wanted to use him to take out the Guardians and get Rocket for himself. But Will Poulter plays him kind of like stupidly and naively, and I think it works, but I can see how it doesn't work for some people, and I know some people are complaining about that, and I completely get that. I wish he would have done more action-wise, but the joke actually worked for me, so I didn't mind it. As for everybody's fates at the end of the movie, I was very, very happy that nobody died. I mean, obviously, that's something that they had been teasing a lot over the last year. Dave Bautista saying he's not coming back, so maybe Drax was gonna die. Rocket was being heavily rumored and hinted at to die in the marketing for this movie. Star-Lord, I thought, could have died at one point. We did have that fake out in the movie, so I was glad that ultimately nobody died and everybody kind of had their own piece. Groot and Rocket were starting the new Guardians with Kraglin, Cosmo, Adam Warlock, the one little girl from the ship that they saved, who I think is part of the Captain Marvel comics. If I'm wrong, you guys can correct me down in the comments. But I like that setup there. Obviously, Quill going back to be with his grandpa. Everything with Gamora going back with the Ravagers. Mantis going off to discover herself, I thought was great with those creatures from Volume 2 and the ones that they found on the ship. And then Drax and Nebula kind of being like the parents of nowhere now with all of the rest of the kids. I think that's fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more Guardian stuff in the future. Without James Gunn, it's going to be really jarring. Now, I loved this movie. That's out of the way. This is probably in my top 10 Marvel movies. But going from here, I really don't think this changes anything for the MCU because it's a Guardians movie. It's by nature pretty standalone, so I'm not expecting the quality to outright change right away. Obviously, there's been a lot of rumors about the Marvels being a mess. I'm going to judge that for myself. Secret Invasion has my attention, but I'm not that excited for it. The next thing that I'm really excited for is Loki Season 2. I think Loki Season 2 is actually going to slap pretty goddamn hard. So I will have reactions out for that during the summer whenever that does release. Hopefully it's summer. I did hear August, but that's the same time Ahsoka's dropping, so who knows. My faith is a little shaky with the MCU right now, but overall I loved this movie and I loved everything that they did with it. So let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below. If you guys are new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, like button, turning on post notifications. Whatever you guys want to do to support the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. So hopefully you guys did enjoy, and I will see you all in the next one.